Welcome to the Grappling With podcast. Dr. Chris Hardy and William Walker will take a deep dive into topics covering wellness and prevention, performance, recovery, and injury management. Our mission is to provide the latest science-based information to help you get the most out of your grappling journey, both on and off the mats, and help you overcome any challenges you may be grappling with. Dr. Hardy is a licensed physician and BJJ practitioner, but the contents of the podcast are meant for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Please seek out personalized care from your own medical provider prior to implementing any medical treatment or intervention.
Seek and you shall receive.
Hello,
yes. Chris.
Hello.
Hello, Livy.
Hello.
That's like a Cockney thing. I like that.
She's
Hello.
A bit of a Cockney. We're going Jiu-Jitsu today.
Thank goodness, because I'm about out. The science stuff is great, but yeah.
We went nerd alert real hard for a couple months.
Yep.
And now we're going into the grappling world. We're grappling with grappling.
Grappling with grappling today instead of testosterone.
Yeah. So we're just going to chat about a few fun little topics that we've farmed throughout the last few weeks.
Okay.
But first, I want to talk to you about who's number one. Flow Grappling's event that's coming up on March 25th. There's been some big news with it, my friend. And that's we've had some injuries.
Always is, unfortunately.
Yep. With some pretty good substitutes, though.
Tell me more.
I guess some people would. It might be arguable if it's a good substitute or not.
Well, since I haven't been, the latest on the injury, tell me a little bit.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, one of the bouts was Jacob Couch, the Hillbilly Hammer from Daisy Fresh series.
He's supposed to go against Nicky Ryan.
Nicky Ryan.
Yeah.
Yep. And Nicky Ryan had been off for like a year, basically, from a knee injury. And this was his road back, and he got injured. Supposedly, he just got 2 more knee injuries.
Oh man!
Two things happened on this go around.
That's never good.
Yeah,
man.
That's tough. He's real young too.
Yeah.
Well, they got a replacement, which is the bigger brother, Gordon Ryan.
Really?
Yeah. Which is interesting because
him against the Hillbilly. Really?
Yeah. It's Jacob Couch, the Hillbilly Hammer, versus Gordon Ryan now.
That's a different animal.
Yes. Yes. So, a couple things. You got Couch is probably 190 pounds, and so is Nicky Ryan. But Gordon is walking around about 235.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. And I think... I'm excited by it. Let me tell you why. And you can tell me I'm crazy, but I think, number one, if there was I don't think there's very many super high level guys that would take this match with Couch in this fashion. Short notice,
right?
Or even like a lot of the elite level guys will not take matches with like these brown belts that are really good and or these like really young competitors. They gotta kind of earn their way up there. So kudos to Gordon, I think, on that. He is way bigger. We haven't seen him in a while, but he is way bigger. I also think it's kind of cool that Couch is like a leg lock specialist. Gordon's been known as a leg lock specialist. But we did see, and Gordon denies this, but we did see Lachlan kind of put Gordon in a couple positions that he wasn't in immediate danger, but Lachlan was almost setting the tempo a little bit on the exchanges. Just a little bit. Gordon says that's BS, and he was just toying with him. But there's a noticeable moment when Gordon versus Lachlan Giles, he decides to go smush City and smush the little guy and then submit him.
Right.
So I like it. I like that there's a leg lock specialist. If Gordon just toys with him and just completely ravages him, it's like, okay, well, Gordon is still Gordon.
Well, for sure. There's always speculation how he's doing with his own medical issues. I'm sure he's well enough to do this match, of course, or he wouldn't have signed up for it. But
Well, and he's signed up with the ADCC, so
Right.
So I like the matchup.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think it's pretty cool. My second, this is my favorite match actually in the whole thing, is Dante Leon
Oh man,
versus Mika Gaval.
that's gonna be great.
Yeah, Mika is this like 19-year-old savage from Brazil, submission machine.
Oh yeah,
He's submitting
Is
basically.
he a brown
everybody.
belt still?
He's now a black belt.
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he recently got his black belt because they have the whole rules of you have to be a certain age to get your black belt. So he's just got his. But he is exciting, super
yeah.
exciting.
That's gonna be excellent.
Yeah, and let me see. Did he beat Tynan or did Tynan beat him? They did a tournament at, I think it was the EUG, and it was an invite $10,000 tournament, and he was in it as a brown belt. And the last guy that was the big phenom was Tynan Dalpra from AOJ, and they met in that tournament, and I think Gaval beat Tynan, which is insane. Tynan just won Worlds and Euros. And then he ended up losing to Jonathan Alves, Tynan's teammate, in the finals. But I believe that's right. But Mika is super exciting. And then Leon is,
Yeah.
I mean, a powerhouse
Oh, for sure.
machine. So I think that's going to be a pretty exciting one. Then you got the bad blood. Blood is dirty, and I'm going to drink it up.
Okay.
You got Mikey Musumeci, Darth Rigatoni against Gio Martinez.
Oh, snap.
They running it back.
Well, there's that whole after match last time where he
Shouldn't be a black belt.
got upset.
Yeah, Mikey got real sassy. Someone put a
Felt
blind
like he
count.
wasn't being treated professionally, and
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, Gio's a little bit more of the I'm here to like get down to business, and
right.
Mikey's here for snow cones.
Yeah.
But he also wants to rip your knees apart, so it's a little goofy.
Makes me wonder, if Mikey's going to chill out, maybe not apologize, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if he's going to comment on that whole scenario, or if he's just going to, like,
He hasn't yet.
let it go and, like, just be chill.
I thought he did afterwards. He kind of felt like he regretted it a little bit.
Well, he said he was emotional.
Yeah.
And he was hopped up, but
Right.
he hasn't really walked anything
Oh,
back
okay.
necessarily. He's just said that like he's happy to try to practice his braking mechanics on Gio,
Okay.
which I think that's going to be a really technical match, especially because Gio, even in that first match, he gave his leg up to Mikey and said, "Go for it." And Mikey was trying to finish his patented straight ankle lock and was not able to. At the same time, Mikey has been very vocal about cleaning up his technique and just finished a guy with a straight ankle lock and nogi in Grapple Fest. So
Well, I mean, Mikey does have now several more months under his belt.
And I'm
doing
sure
nogi practice and stuff.
thousands of reps too, knowing
Yeah.
how he trains.
and he wasn't doing the quote unquote Mikey lock.
Yeah. Okay.
He hadn't quite developed that to the extent that he has now. So that will be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
How that goes. I think it's going to be a long match. It might go to decision. Gio's super hard to finish, and Mikey definitely gets tunnel visioned on like he wants that Mikey lock or that straight ankle. So
Yeah.
I think we're looking at a leg battle for sure, but it's going to be extremely technical.
Yeah.
Which will be super fun to watch.
It's a great card so far.
Yeah, it's cooking with peanut oil for sure. Then we have, let me see here. We have El Monstro. He's a brown belt. He won ADCC trials, East Coast, I believe. Or did he lose in the finals? Dang it. He might have, no, he lost East Coast, I think, in the finals. I think.
Is that a nickname?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, isn't that a plant?
His name's Elder Cruz. He's a Czech mat guy, but he is he's got some of the best wrestling. He beat Nicky Rod at their match that they just had.
The basically the stand-up wrestling head tie match.
Yeah, exactly. Until the last like 30 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. So the guy's an absolute savage. He lost at East Coast Trials in the finals, I think, to Mason Fowler, maybe. And then he's facing Hasim Rida.
Wow. So that's going to be really interesting with body types.
Mm-hmm. Hasim's like 6'4".
Yes. Super lanky, very strong.
Yeah. And a dynamic guard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
that's going to be really
good judo.
Yeah, oh, yeah. It's going to be a really good... That's an interesting matchup, actually.
Yeah. And every... the antidote to wrestling is judo. But the antidote to judo is wrestling.
It's better wrestling.
So that'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah.
And then the dark horse match, which I think is going to be very disappointing. It might not be. I'm just saying... I'm not holding my breath. I think it's going to be fairly disappointing. And this, I would have a baby with this man. So I don't say it lightly. Okay?
Okay.
I would let him impregnate me.
Bill.
Sorry.
Why are you the way that you are?
That's a whole podcast, Olivia. Come on.
I think elementary school.
I was going to say.
Maybe middle school. I think it was something
That'd be an interesting onion to peel.
So... That's Nicholas Madagascar. His no-gi debut.
Yeah.
Always been a gi guy. One of the most exciting gi guys there are. He's taking it off. He's taking the kimono off. He's hanging it up.
Hasn't he been training with Gordon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Danaher.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Specifically for ADCC because he got a special invite for ADCC.
So who's his opponent?
Maidana, which is a competition level black belt for sure.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, not the most exciting fella I've ever seen. Really good straight ankle lock. I think he might even be a world champion in the gi.
Mm-hmm.
Has some good matches with Felipe Andrew. He actually had a couple really good matches with Keenan in the gi. But I'm not super stoked because Maidana is kind of like he's not a real dynamic guy, and I think Marigali, from at least taking from his gi style, is a dynamic player.
Oh, very much.
Scrambles, wants someone that moves.
Mm-hmm.
Marigali, as we've seen with the last two Victor Hugo matches, can get lulled into like snooze fests, and that's a two-part thing. Like the last two matches with Hugo intentionally didn't want to have all these scrambles and stuff, so he just kind of bared down.
Well,
and with someone like Marigali, kind of got to. So I'm wondering if Maidana's going to do that. And there's all this like lead up to like Marigali. Oh my gosh!
You know what though? Yeah, I get what you're saying, but they're taking off the gi though. Mm-hmm. It's a little harder to do that. Mm-hmm. To kind of really slow, and there's not as many grips, and so
it'll be interesting. For
it
sure.
will be interesting,
and I think it is on the flip side, it is a good opponent because this guy, Maidana isn't a leg lock specialist, but he has a really good straight ankle lock. So it's one of those things where he will play, with your feet a little bit. Mm-hmm. He'll tickle the toes, if you will. But he's not this specialist that's gonna be able to take advantage of Marigali.
I'm just fascinated to watch Marigali, how he plays his game.
Yeah.
No gi, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I could see him doing a lot of reverse De La Riva.
Right. I was gonna say.
And then going under quite a bit, back takes and stuff like that.
Should be
Marabolas.
So I'm actually interested in that. I hear what you're saying now.
I'm interested.
The matchup makes the, can make the match.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in it. I don't know if it's going to be the most exciting.
Okay.
Because we anticipate excitement because it's Marigali.
I gotcha.
I'm
as opposed to putting a Ruotolo or someone like that in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I mean, then I'm like, oh, this is going to be the best match of the year.
Right.
So, Yeah, having that specific partner is. I know it's a good test. It's intentional. I respect that. But from an excitement standpoint, which we're all hyped about, I don't know if it's gonna be the best.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it.
No, I'm not. I'm protesting. Olivia, don't scrunch your
She's
brow.
like, that is a lie.
Yeah, that's a lie from the devil. I think that's pretty much all of the matches. I think there's a couple other. Oh yeah, there's Gabriel Souza versus Keith Krikorian, which is a beast of a undercard match.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, Souza is the one that tapped Mikey Musumeci,
Yep.
and Krikorian is just getting second place at everything. So no shade towards him, but he's doing really freaking good. So that'll be a nice one. I don't know who these other two guys are, Griffith and Dirk Heising. And then you got David Garmo versus Bjj Silva, which Bjj Silva is like an old school cat. Pretty exciting dude, and Garmo's always exciting. So all around, really good card.
That's going to be excellent.
You gave me no picks, and I hate it. Give me a pick now.
Well, give me a matchup.
Mikey, Gio.
I think Mikey's going to take it.
Okay. Decision or submission?
Submission. I'm going to go for it.
Big balls on
Yeah,
Brad.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Gaval Leon.
Oh, Gaval.
Mika Gaval.
Yep.
Submission or decision?
Ooh. Leon is very scrambly, though.
His nickname was Scrambled Eggs in high school.
Yeah. As much as I want to see it in as good as Gaval is, that might go the distance there, I think.
Distance.
Yeah.
I take Gaval by sub.
Do you? Okay.
Just like that.
Okay.
I'm going for it. Marigali Maidana. Arnaldo Maidana.
That's probably going to go the distance, I think.
distance,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'm gonna go with Marigali.
Okay, I agree. Elder Cruz, Heisen Rida.
I'm gonna go with Heisen.
Okay.
Yep. Submission.
Submission.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
I've been a fan of his since like Quintet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's. I mean,
Submission.
I think
leg
he's
lock?
underrated. Yeah, probably.
I can see a leg lock or guillotine.
Because he's got that length too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am gonna go Elder by decision.
Really?
Yeah. He's
Okay.
gonna put that sleeping pill on him. Gordon Ryan, Jacob Couch.
Gordon Ryan. Submission.
Really?
Yep.
Bold.
I don't think so.
I was laying it on real thick.
I think now the question is not whether it's going to be submission or not. Is he going to call the submission?
What kind of submission do you think he gets him in?
I think he'll choke him.
Rear naked?
Yeah, probably.
Butt naked?
Take us back.
Okay. I think he's gonna. He likes to like. Do we know what tutorials coming out that he's gonna sell on BJJ Fanatics? He likes to.
I
do
thought he
that
had a.
sometimes.
The last one I saw was the mount one.
Oh, okay.
So I might be behind a
Yeah.
little bit on the tutorials there. But I'm just thinking about the matchup, not what he's capable of. Obviously, he can submit from anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the matchup and who he's going against. What I think he'll probably end up doing. I think he'll end up taking us back.
I'm gonna go leg lock.
Really?
Yeah, I think he knows he's a specialist, and I could see him being one of those guys that's like, you know what?
I'm gonna submit you with your.
own juju.
Yeah, okay.
You know?
Yeah, but you could argue that Gordon was a leg lock specialist before.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even Couch says he credits Gordon
For sure.
Inspirational and stuff.
Yeah, but that's I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Interesting though.
it's gonna be a good one. March 25th on Flow
Oh,
Grappling.
I'm all over that.
Check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk. Me and you and Olivia. Let's get a campfire. Let's talk about BJJ Ego.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a really good topic, I think.
Well, and there's levels to it. There's layers. You're talking about peeling an onion.
Yeah.
You can peel this onion.
I have my own. I think I have my own biases, given who I am and
For sure.
what I'm trying to get out of jiu-jitsu at as an older grappler. I think I would, and we'll see what you have to say about it.
Well, I think part of your answer, because we've talked a little bit about this kind of stuff, is you've come to a point, and I want to figure out, especially Olivia also wants to figure out, how did you get there? Because we've talked about how I get in my own head, crazy, but you don't really do that as much. At least with the certain things that we've talked about.
With certain things.
How about this? Do you ever have trouble because you're a brown belt, when lower belts, let's say blue, purple belts, typically you're not going to have a white belt submit you. Not that it can never happen. But
sure.
You're intentionally
it's
putting yourself
probably less likely, but it's not impossible.
Typically, let's say savage blue belt.
Oh, for sure.
Or something like that comes in and submits you.
Yeah.
Or if, let's say, you're a blue belt and or a purple belt or a brown belt, and like a new person comes in, new gal, and they're like a wrestler or a judo person. They're just tough and athletic and something like that.
Yeah, they're just giving you a hard time.
They're just giving you the business a little bit.
Yep.
What does that do for you mentally?
So I look at it differently. As I was coming up, I was 45 or 44 when I started as a white belt. So, but I still had, I thought, trying to prove myself in this martial art to myself a little bit at the beginning. I think it might have bothered me a little more. After several injuries, trying to recover, one of my goals is, obviously getting technically better constantly, really, and not getting injured. I mean, that is almost when I go to class and I look who I'm going to roll with or whatever, that's first in my mind. Matter of fact, I get submitted all the time by, there's some we have some really tough purple belts. And I think it's, I like to see the progression. I'm at the point now where if someone gets me in something clean like that, not just, it's different. Someone's just trying to spazzing on you, and I'm just trying to protect myself from getting injured. But someone's really using good technique. I'm always, makes me feel good that my teammates are progressing to the point where they're just getting something really clean. I mean, if you look at the role I did with Gian, is a perfect example. I mean, just beautiful transition into,
the one on our YouTube
page. I mean, he did such a nice job transitioning to an ashikarami to a really nice ankle lock. It was really tight. And, I'm not at the point now where I'm not going to sit there and, alligator roll. And, I mean, it's not worth it to me, risking a knee injury. And at the same time, when someone gets something clean like that, like, good on you type of thing. So it doesn't bother me at all. Matter of fact.
So how'd you get like that? Because I could easily imagine. Well, I mean, I can't imagine. I can obviously imagine because it's happened, but like I'll go through, I'm just being honest, but I'll go through like mini phases of emotions where, let's say, a lower belt gets me. I'm fine in the moment, but then something creeps in at some point.
I see. Yeah.
The devil. And then I start thinking I suck balls.
Then we have to hire an exorcist, and man, it's a real problem.
Nothing against that, but it feels that way.
I like you being honest about it, though, because I think many people probably feel the same way.
But it's like a wave pool. I'll also be like, I'll for a moment, I'll think like you, and I'll be like, oh, that's awesome. Like, this guy's getting better. Or they're getting better, like, and they caught me clean, and then I start diagnosing, like, oh, I should have done that to be able to get better. But
that should have been the end of it, right?
Should have been, could have been, would have been, wasn't.
I guess you have to then start asking yourself, well, what is it about that is bothering you? I mean, is it you feel like, as someone, a brown belt, that people are looking up to you and like, oh, well, they shouldn't be submitting Bill, a lower belt? Or is it, I mean, I don't know I know when you're trying to kind of get like a white belt or a blue belt coming up in the academy, you're trying to kind of figure out what this is all about, and then trying to not prove yourself, but you're almost like you're standing at the is this, I guess you never want to feel like, oh, this guy's like a pushover, he's garbage, type of thing. Maybe there's a little and every time my ego's crept in, I've gotten injured because I've done something that I shouldn't have done to try to retain a guard, something that is some kind of movement that I didn't set up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's more pragmatic, where I've been injured enough where I'm like, and then I'm out for, like the last one, I was out for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Kind of. So you know what I mean? You saw me hobbling around, and to me, I'm like, well, that's just not worth it to me. Right. And it doesn't mean that you want to be passive either, but you can still be.
Do you ever question like your worthiness of your belt?
Legitimacy?
Like legitimacy?
That's a good question.
In those moments ever?
No, I've tried. No, I don't, because I've tried to keep it in context. I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, the bottom line is, and I'm not trying to use age as an excuse, but there's a reality into a 52-year-old, trying to playing the game of a 25-year-old wrestler that's coming in, has an endless gas tank, super explosive, doesn't really, control their body, in jiu-jitsu super well. I don't look at it like that anymore. I'm past the point where that's like demoralizing to me. I'm like, I know what I'm there for, I guess. I'm trying to better myself, and I'm not going to put my progression, my acquisition of skill in this art at jeopardy because of a couple seconds where I didn't want to get my guard passed and I did something. Yeah. First of all, I want to say, well, why did that happen?
Right.
So I look in, what did I do to have it, to get in that situation, and then not try to do something crazy that I normally wouldn't do just to try to save face in that one sequence, I think it's just been over time, man. It's just not like I'm not like some Zen guy that's like, hey, man, no, it's been a process, but at this point, at brown belt level especially, I'm just trying to hone my game and not get injured. So I think that's driving more than anything with the ego. It's just it's a risk benefit analysis.
Right. Olivia, have you ever had those thoughts where you like question your worthiness because you got your guard passed by someone that is a lower quote unquote rank?
All the time.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. I do it too,
but let's be clear though, as far as being worthiness of a belt, all the time. Because I never feel like I'm up to that. Right. And it takes like a year or year and a half after getting the belt to be like, okay, maybe I'm at that level. Do you know what?
Yeah.
So that's I think that's a different argument, but not from a situational thing where.
Well, it gets so easy to like compare yourself with like this person or that person that's in your gym, or you went dropped in someplace and that person beat you up, or you beat them up, or and they're your belt level or under, whatever.
I think my biggest, not rivalries, but of testing myself is with someone of my same belt level or higher to see how I'm actually progressing or regressing. Like rolling with you is a perfect example. Some days I feel like I'm like, oh, wow, Bill just submitted me 3 times. And then other days I feel a little more on, and that doesn't happen as much. So it's not for you it has nothing to do with you. That's more gauge because I know how controlled the upper belts roll. I know a lot of your games, and to me, that's a better gauge of my progress than someone being ultra athletic and aggressive and me just not getting injured. So, man, that's a.
What is it about it, Liv, that makes you? I mean, and that goes away, I assume, right? Where you have that little mini depression almost of like, oh, I suck. I'm not worth crap. This purple belt's nothing.
What was the question? What makes it go away?
Like, how does it go away for you? How do you end up defeating that thought?
That I'm not worthy of my belt. I have to remind myself that Andrew is the one who gave me my belt, and if he thinks that I'm worthy of it, or that I've learned the skills necessary to get to that point, then I need to trust that and not try to play like the comparison game.
That's probably the best answer I could think of, because Andrew.
I haven't answered yet, just to put that on.
You're not going to top that one, because especially knowing Andrew, and he doesn't give those things away. It's definitely a meritocracy with that. So you got to trust our professor.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, most people listening to this at their gym, it's going to be very similar. Where they felt that you were ready to get whatever rank it is, and you are deserving of it. And I think as you go through the ranks, you realize like you are not defined by a certain role or a certain like moment of being submitted or submitting. It's not those single things that define your game or your level, and even from a we were going to talk about BJJ stereotypes, but there's people that are really good at application, so rolling or something like that. They have a few knives in their belt that are really sharp, but maybe not a ton of knowledge, but there's certain things they do really well.
Oh yeah,
and that can get them through like belts and to a high level.
Well, if they just play their A game the whole time.
Yeah, and maybe they have some other stuff, but they got black belt level armbar, brown belt level triangle, but maybe like blue belt level sweep.
Yep.
Sweeps, or the complementary stuff isn't quite as developed as some other parts. Now, everyone always has that to a certain extent, but some people have. They feel very good application-wise, but very narrow. And then there's some people that have an exceptional amount of knowledge. Putting it together in actual live application, which is sparring or competition, can be difficult.
Yeah.
But they have an encyclopedia, let's say, or to whatever belt level they are. They have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah. I want to kind of go back to something you were saying earlier about that person that's getting by on, not getting by, but you know what I mean. It has a couple. So I've had some conversations recently, especially some of our really strong and athletic blue belts, and a couple of them are like, I'm like, where's your guard, man? Your top game is great. Your passing is getting really good, but they, and because they're getting. They're getting that. This relates to ego too, I think. Yeah. In a way, because they know that's their A game. Yeah. And when you're developing a guard, I can tell you first. I mean, that's not a natural. Right. Yeah, especially for someone that is strong and athletic, they're going to want to play the top game a lot, and they're going to hamper their progress because they don't like. Because let's be honest, you start playing a guard you're unfamiliar with or trying to really develop it and pulling it all the time. Just to develop it, you're going to get smashed a lot. Yeah. And you're going to have to realize, hey, that's part of my development here, and I got to take that ego and squash it if I'm going to make progress, because at a certain point in time, it's going to bite you. Yeah. If you don't develop that and become very,
Well, and that kind of carries over throughout your whole journey. Like you constantly have to. I mean, one of the things I think when you progress and get better and better and better is when you start learning something new within jiu-jitsu, right? Like, okay, I'm going to really practice this certain guard or passing style or whatever it is. you do have to submit yourself and be like, okay, I'm gonna get swept a lot now. I'm gonna if like I'm trying pressure passing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm gonna get swept. I'm gonna get regarded on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna probably get submitted more when I'm trying these things because I'm kind of going into more unfamiliar territory.
Mm-hmm.
But your progress will be faster because you have a better knowledge of jiu-jitsu and body movement and stuff like that.
And 6 months from now.
Right. Rather than if I was a white belt learning it or a blue belt learning it, that time might be a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, you're still going to have to kind of reset a little bit, which especially at the blue belt level can be difficult, or even like, let's say a white belt, like 3 or 4 stripes, where, okay, I have this one guard I'm playing. It's time to adjust a little bit, and let's expand on that a little bit.
Well, you may have noticed this in what I do, especially with equal belts or lower. I won't play top game unless I sweep.
Right.
And that's just so I can keep developing different aspects of my guard, because it's definitely not my, I'd love to play top half guard all day,
Yeah,
but
I do know.
but that's not gonna help my development.
Right.
And so that's a really important, but it's hard, because then you're like, oh gosh, I got my guard passed, or
What about you, Liv? When you're trying to work on something,
What's the question?
when you're trying to work on something, and do you find it difficult to start working on something new?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I know that I'm gonna, like you said, get swept or get in a bad side control position, as in like if I'm on bottom.
And you don't even want to lose a roll, right? Or a situational round, like you don't even want to lose that.
I mean, I would like to not, but yeah. So yeah, it basically makes me be like, okay, I'm abandoning that. I'm going straight back to like what I know, which then of course leaves you very like you said, narrow in like your game. You don't have this like nice rounded game.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why it just made me think of like a wheel and like spokes and like different lengths and them being like a wonky wheel. Yeah. Like you're just it's not going to be nice and smooth
and that it'll get more oblong.
Oh, exaggerated as your journey goes on.
Yeah. You like that word?
I like it quite a bit, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, is training 2 days a week completely worthless?
No. So it depends on your situation. So as opposed to just not training.
Okay.
So you're saying, to me, that question or that comment means, so if I can only train 2 days a week, I might as well just not even train? Is that what we're talking about?
It's on the table.
No, what I think 2 days a week can kind of keep you, your progress is going to be definitely slower, but it will keep you in there enough where you still will make progress. It's not going to be as fast because you're not getting it reinforced enough. Yeah. And really, it's just time on the mats, right? But if all you can do is 2 days a week because of whatever family issues you have, gosh, I mean, there are times, especially when I start feeling I'm getting in an overtrained state, I will pull back one day out of that week. And I feel the difference for sure, but it's better than me, going those 2 days is certainly worth it to me. If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. And I still think you'll get a lot of benefits out of it. What I've seen is then people will kind of start rearranging their life a little bit to, prioritize their training sometimes, if possible. But it will kind of keep you, keep your skills.
Yeah.
More than anything, more skill retention than really developing a lot of new ones.
And I think you could probably, if you are in that boat where you can only train twice a week, you can do things that maximize that time. Yeah. Right. So if you are only finding yourself able to come in twice a week, when you're there, like drill intentionally. It's the thing that I see probably the most is a lot of people will not drill with intention. They'll be very lackadaisical or just kind of goofing around, or which, hey, I mean, trust me. I'm sure there's people listening right now like, I see you and Olivia barely drilling.
I was going to say, or you have a partner who you ask them to drill, and they're like, I need to get 6 rounds in. And then they start mopping up.
I'm talking about during, like, the actual class and it's drill time.
Oh, okay.
Were you talking about Bill?
She tries to act like this. This person's like, I'm trying to drill after class. I'm trying to drill. And I'm like, I'm trying to get some rounds in.
So drilling is definitely an intentional thing, but you can also, you can train intentionally too without,
for sure,
quote unquote, drilling.
Well, and I was getting there. Is like, every step of the way, like you can do, just have meaning behind it.
Like I have a plan tonight.
Yeah.
After class, right. I have a couple things I'm working.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
exactly, and,
right.
And when you're consciously working on that stuff, right, in the moment and stuff like that, it's very easy to kind of, whether you're sparring, just to spar. If you're drilling, just kind of going through the motions, right. And then if you have any like time, if you're someone that like watches any sort of jiu-jitsu, like because you can only go twice a week, but maybe you're watching some stuff at home, is watch with intention.
I know you do the same thing, and I think Andrew talks about this all the time. Watching competition, and whatever you're trying to get out of it. Whether it's we were talking about learning for people new, learning the rules. Yeah. And then trying to score like as if you were the ref, or watching someone that set up something really cool, and you're like, well, how did they enter? You know what I mean? Watching with an observer's eye, not just to be entertained. Yeah, I think it's really valuable. So I think you're right. I mean, you told stories about that before you even started jiu-jitsu. You'd
watch a lot.
I watch a ton. And I think it's really helped you.
Especially for like getting better quickly.
For sure. Yeah, but that goes the same thing. It's mat time, right? So, but let's say you're only going to be on the mat twice a week. If you can spend that other time, kind of watching and doing, so I think
even a little bit, it really helped, because I knew what stuff was when it was my first day.
Right.
I you get some first day people that have no idea about jiu-jitsu or anything, and you like say the word shrimp or hip escape or a triangle, and it doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah.
But because I had watched so much, I knew what a shotgun armbar is. It's weird,
But then you have to put your, the kinesthetics in place and try to figure out how to move my body to do it.
Yeah, because it's like I could put myself in kind of the position, but the squeezing was off and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, topic about training frequency.
Yeah.
It starts to really diminish, especially if you're more sporadic. I think if you're 2 days a week but you're consistent, that's a lot better than going, I'm going 5 days a week for 4 weeks and I don't see him for 6 months.
Do you think it'd be better to do like a Thursday, like Saturday, and then you have the week off, and then like almost putting them closer together rather than like Monday and Friday or something like that?
Yeah, and then you can also, what we were talking about earlier, let's say you were working something in class, then you can, after those 2 days, you can spend the rest of the week, okay, let's say we worked half guard or something, whatever it is, knee shield. Then you can kind of watch some videos to reinforce what you've learned before then. It might be a little different take on it, but it's still, you're getting that kind of in your mind more. So there's a lot of ways to do that and be pretty successful with it.
Yeah. Well, what if one of the things that you want to develop is grit? You want to get a little tougher, a little saucy.
So if you're coming into it, let's say you mean like people that kind of give up on themselves in certain situations, or
that's one. Maybe because I think we've talked about it before. Where you almost have two ends of the spectrum of people that start jiu-jitsu. You have your spaz that tries ultra hard. They don't breathe. Maybe they're not full spaz, but they put in a lot of effort. a lot of jerky motions.
That was me.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. As a white belt.
Trying very hard, gripping everything very...
Way too much energy use. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Very stiff.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you have the other side, which is actually what I was. And I would say Olivia at times, yeah, for the most part. In that you will not put the effort, like you won't put effort in when you should.
Mm-hmm.
You won't. You'll be more gentle. You will. You don't want, like, for me, I really didn't want to be looked at as a spaz because I knew what a spaz was.
I see.
And
so you went the opposite, and you were more passive.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Now I wasn't so passive. Like there's a lot of people that were way more passive than me because I also had the competitive thing in me. So like if someone was spazzing on me, then I would get angry and then try to like go hard back. But there's people that just they kind of it's almost like wilting a little bit. I don't mean that to be like in a rude sense, but
no,
it's almost like okay, fight or flight, and kind of the flight comes out.
Yeah, and I'm like I can't figure out a way out of this problem, and so
it just kind of wilts almost.
Yeah, and you can see it when it happens. Mm-hmm. You can even see watching a competition when someone's like
and just in sparring.
Oh, for sure.
And there's so how does someone more towards that end of it develop and live? So you weren't necessarily the wilter, but it was kind of and you can't, I mean, you lifted weights before. It's not like working out was new, because that can be a difficult thing if someone hasn't really lifted weights. Like getting used to exerting yourself can be really tough, right? But Liv, you have a very competitive mindset, so when it comes out, you're all good, but you struggle to tap it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To tap into that, like.
Well, and I think also, for me, there's something weird about like you were talking about like exertion and stuff like that. So I'm competitive, but when I have to exert myself a lot, I'm scared of getting fatigued, like quickly, and then not being able to do whatever I wanted to do. And number two, when I get fatigued, and this has become less and less, but when I first started, the emotions would come out. Like, instead of like anger, I would want to cry.
What was, I mean, it sounds hard. Vince Lombardi used to say, fatigue makes cowards of us all.
Right.
And, man, I think a lot of the toughness, quote unquote, there's smart toughness and dumb toughness, right?
Yeah.
I think learning how to manage energy and dealing, because this is not just lifting weights, you're in a physical combat basically, and your nervous system is in a fight or flight, and learning how to manage energy and breathe during that is a thing. It's a skill in itself.
Is the only way to get better at doing it.
Yep. And understanding and being able to talk to I remember as the worst thing in the world when I was a white belt with Andrew Jong, smashing, and not in a bad way, just his style, and just because I had never experienced it before. Very heavy on the diaphragm and side control or whatever. He's just a notable one, and it's not a malicious thing, it's just part of the thing when you start out.
Pressure.
It's crazy.
Passer kind of guy.
Right. And when you haven't experienced that before, and you're like, I can't move, and I can't do anything right now.
I would literally avoid him when I was a white belt, because, and probably even a little bit blue belt, probably still do, but it was because it was. I would have that kind of like, I really don't want to feel that.
Well, it's being slowly crushed by a steamroller.
Yeah.
And you can't stop it.
I just didn't want to feel that, and I was like, but I knew I needed to go against that. He helped
this piece more than anything. I started seeking that out a lot more as I was coming up, and then learning some of the stuff, learning how to breathe in a circumferential manner under that kind of pressure. You still have a little bit of, have you ever heard Hickson talk about that? where you're getting smashed in side control. And he goes, no, you got a little bit of space between your back and the mat. And you can kind of breathe down into that.
Okay.
Yeah, the circumferential just means not just breathing up, but breathing in a 360. Learning how to
I
expand.
just saw some deadlifter guy talking about this. Like, he put his hands around his below the floating rib.
I was just coaching someone the other day on breathing, and it's another kinesthetic thing where if you haven't felt it, that might be a good thing to do at the gym one time. To you know, people like
talking about like
he
put his hands like
that's
C's,
right. Yep,
just below the floating rib,
that's
and
right.
then was saying breathe to expand your hand.
The entire thing,
rather than, because what he was saying is a lot of deadlifters, they'll do these like big breaths right before they do it.
Yep.
But they go.
Yep.
And then they're tense in the neck
Up
and their
here,
chest. And then they do their squat, and he's like yoked like crazy. But
and that also, chest breathing also increases the sympathetic nervous system. Excuse me, the sympathetic nervous system, the flight or fight.
so it's harder to stay calm.
It is. Because if you think about how we're wired, that, you know, sorry about this in the microphone, but that kind of huffing and puffing chest breathing thing is associated with extreme effort, and the body associates that with a fight or flight, where if you can breathe through your nose and really breathe down into your belly, really diaphragmatically, it actually activates the parasympathetic and helps energy management too, so you don't get that adrenaline dump. And learning how to do that, it's something you could practice. Find someone that is really heavy as far as their pressure, and say, hey, can you just really kind of put it to me, and I just to try to learn how to breathe under that. And we're circling back to the whole topic of toughness, but a lot of toughness is learning how to deal with the situation effectively without panicking and giving up. You know, it's not there's the mental toughness that you see a lot of wrestlers come out with, because they're just, you know, the training, or when I came out of Navy dive school, they're looking to break you because they don't want you breaking. As far as a military diver, they didn't want you breaking while you're in a stressful situation underwater with a buddy that might be relying on you. So they try to break you during training to develop that kind of, okay, this is really horrendous the way my body's feeling right now, but I know I can go further. That type of thing, that's different in a way. And that's just experience too, just going through it, because I had never been pushed that hard. And that was in my early 20s when I went through that program. And that, coming out of that, I'm like, well, I can do anything. You know, that's how I felt.
I know, and I talked with Olivia about this just the other day, but Eddie Bravo talked about when he was getting ready for the Meta Morris 3, his rematch with Hoyler.
Yeah.
That he, you know, jiu-jitsu's like, there's a bunch of mini sprints, right? And if you can not necessarily get good at the sprint, but get good at the recovery part.
That's right.
It was going to make a huge difference for him. So what he was doing is, because he's a little older at the time, I think he was probably in his 40s. He went to the pool, and he would, like, the clock would start and a minute would go, the second hand, and he had to swim down and back, and whatever time was left was his rest time.
That's right.
And obviously, in the beginning, he had less rest time. But as he got better, right, he would have more. And if he pushed harder and he swam harder, he would have more recovery time.
That's right.
And what he notices, he could, like, if he did push hard and wasn't scared about being really blown out and like, you know, that he could still, if he just needed 15 seconds. And then his breath, he's not completely back, like sitting here, but a manageable feeling. And that's all he needed. He just needed 15 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever. He didn't need all 25 like you think you need. You go through that exertion and just mentally understanding that.
It's teaching your brain. So I'll share with you part of the 4th week in dive school it's a 13-week program. The 4th week was called Pool Week, and you would basically get at the bottom of the deep end in your full scuba with a weight belt, and you would crawl in a circle with your buddies face down crawling on the bottom, full kit out. You know, you had your mask, fins, and big twin tanks on your back, and you're just breathing, and you could not look up. You were not allowed to. And the instructors would come down and so-called hit you. So they'd grab you and try to take your air. You could not fight back. You could only hold on to a strap of your tank. You couldn't let them take your air, but you could hold on to one of your tank straps.
Yeah.
But they would rip your mask off your face, your fins, and they'd tie your regulator in a knot. Do all kinds of, turn your air off, all kinds of stuff. And then they had 45 seconds to so-called mess you up. And that whole time you're breath holding and, you know.
Yeah.
And then you would have to, without any safety violations, sit there and put yourself back together, turn your air back on, and get yourself set up.
I think I've seen this in like Buds or something.
Oh, they do. It's a little more extreme in
Well, like
Buds.
where they go down, they ravage you a little bit.
Yeah,
and
it's the
Buds
same.
stuff.
It's the same thing in dive school, but your brain doesn't think that, you know, they're like, oh, I'm gonna die basically. But after you do that over and over again, and you realize, no, I have enough. You know, they don't do it to you first day. You build up a little tolerance for breath holds. But it's calming yourself in a situation where you very readily could die, you know, in different circumstances. And that carries over into the brain. Like, you know, it's the same thing you're talking about with what he was doing with the swimming. But those experiences have a lot of transfer over. And so if you don't have those experiences, just understand going into jiu-jitsu, what you're walking into, you're learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And then if you can turn off that flight or fight and then be like, I think you were narrating in the video, you're like, oh, he's passing out, playing fight. I will sit there, and if I'm not going to fight a position, you know, try to force a sweep or something like that, you know, I'll really kind of relax a bit and feel a weight shift, and then boom, try to explode. And but anyway, it's a learned thing, I think.
Yeah, and I think a way you can train it is, for example, like situationals. Like, yes, in sparring, that's kind of the easiest way, right? Is push yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean go spazzy, but it does mean like, don't take that round off, right? And obviously you got to listen to your own body. Are you burned out? And like, you know, all this kind
for
of
sure.
stuff. But you know, you're tired. You're going to take this round off. Someone asks you to roll. Go ahead.
Right.
Push your comfort level in situationals. Like, for example, I haven't been sleeping very well, so I've been getting really tired in situationals. And we've been doing like winner stays down kind of thing.
Yep.
And I'm finding myself, if I happen to have like a longer streak where I'm down, so I'm just getting one person after another. And like Andrew jumped in yesterday, so me and him are having battles. And but I'm finding myself getting pretty tired. And one of the things I'll do sometimes is, if I get maybe a not a big person, but also a lower belt, and they're not like large, so they can't like impose like a bunch of weight on me or anything. I instead of keeping my intensity in the situational, I'll take 20, 30 seconds to just let me catch my breath a little
Of course.
bit. Let me just relax a little bit and let them feel like they're doing something.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be offensive to anybody.
It's not. But it's energy management.
But I think if I were trying to stretch my comfort zone, get some more grit, get comfortable in the uncomfortable, I should be pushing in those times and knowing that, like, okay, I'm intentionally kind of relaxing, being lazy. And if I want in this moment, if I'm trying to improve in that area, that I shouldn't do that in this moment.
That was my point I was going to make.
Yeah.
If you know you're not doing something in a moment where you should have, that's a problem.
If I'm trying to develop that.
If you're trying to or you have an opportunity to set up, get an underhook from half guard, and you were just like, I'm just going to throw up my shield.
I might not do it because they might defend it, and then I'll get tired.
Right, that's my point. So if you're not, so it's, again, it's intention. Yeah, that's, but I think that subject is really interesting. You can tell some people that come, we see it in the wrestlers a lot. They come in, they have that kind of, sometimes to their detriment.
Right.
They have that kind of that dog in them, so to speak, which I think is good.
Yeah, for sure. I think at the same time, you know, if they wrestle just in high school, they have 3 years, 2 years, 4 years of training of bringing that dog out. They're starting when, yes, they're technically a first-day jiu-jitsu person, but that's not the same as a first-day jiu-jitsu person that has done taekwondo when they were a kid.
No, wrestling's grappling.
Yeah, and the martial art they did actually doesn't have realistic aggression, you know.
Right.
So you're going to have a different battle than.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
I still am battling, and I'm almost 5 years into my journey, and I'm still like working on developing that. Like, for example, at the last tournament I did, Andrew was coaching me, and he knew I was playing. It was the second match, and I knew I was going to go into lapel,
right?
Like a lapel series. That was the game plan, and Andrew, like he knows, like when we're coaching or when he's like coaching me, he knows I'm fairly cerebral,
right? So
what I need is like what he does is he'll tell me, okay, like motivation to like, okay, start moving, start your scrambles, rather than like maybe technical of like pass that over here or
for sure.
It's more of like reminders of clock and motivation and like if I'm doing something like encouraging that moment, like go, yep,
go, yeah.
Get your knees under you or something like that. And I could hear him repeatedly say like, you know, this guy's already tired. He can't keep up with the scrambles. Like when I start inverting and like start chaining stuff. So he was trying to motivate me to just start moving. Because a lot of the time with kind of my style is I'll just start, like I kind of thrive in like the unusual, I guess you could say. So just start the movement. Start the inversion, start the off balance, and just see where it goes.
Right.
But once I got into a quality lapel position, like reverse de la worm, which is like the epitome of like once you get that grip, you just move them around, and wherever they put their hand is your back take, your arm bar, your triangle.
That's right.
It's up to you
right
at that point. And instead, I just held it because I was scared that I would. There was a fear that I would get tired, that I would try knocking him around, and he would defend well, and then my grip would be toast, and then he would be able to pass my guard and submit me in front of my fans, or not fans, but friends and family.
Your fans, look at you, put the ego on you. My fans.
I meant to say friends and family, and it came out as fans.
I'm sure you did.
Bow down, you old. I'm bleeping that for sure.
No, you better not. It's got to be in there.
So yeah,
we'll start a fan club for you, Bill. It's okay. There's a little Freudian slips, man.
Yeah, something like that.
So, no, I mean, you're making a lot of.
Still trying to develop it myself.
Yeah, we all are. I think the toughness. You know, it's a lifelong journey into that. I've gotten situations even recently. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
You know, that is just.
Liv, how are you developing it, or are you trying to develop it?
I want to develop it. I mean, I don't know. It's taking those tough roles, but there's so often where I'm like, I just don't want to get tired. It's that fear of fatigue. But it's not just like a fear of fatigue. Like there is that, but then there's also like this mental side of me where I've already like decided that I've been defeated. And so maybe there's a scramble and I go against a particular person. Maybe that person always gets the win, like gets the dominant position, right? So now if I go against them mentally, I've already given up that position because I know that they always get it. So I don't know. I don't, but I mean, I am curious, like how, I mean, Chris, how would you say that you would develop that, like, more like dog, like fighting?
What you were saying there, what I would say is pick your, if you have that situation where you're, you already kind of defeating yourself,
Yeah.
try to really, blank that out and look at the person as basically a skeleton. Don't worry about the belt around their waist or who it is and the history. And look for your openings and try to impose your game every time. And then all of a sudden, you'll hit something you didn't think you could do. And that's going to develop, it's confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a lack of confidence, for
Well,
sure.
of course, and that's normal, I think. But, just trying something that you normally wouldn't, you're like, well, I'm going to shoot for this, and you may not hit it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least you've pulled the trigger, so to speak, instead of not pulling the trigger. I don't know.
I totally agree. I remember when a handful of times with different people that I was different belt. I was a blue belt one, purple belt another, brown belt another. That I did that with. They were upper belts, and whether it was Andrew, Mo, Dan, like these guys, where I decided like I'm taking the mystique from them. Like Andrew crushes me.
Right.
Mo submits me when he wants to. He calls me and says, I submitted you. And I say, okay, it's done.
At 5:20
Yes.
p.m., we're going to do this.
He texts me. Dan, like I find myself to be a transition guy. Dan is the transition guy.
Yep.
Right? So, but there's been moments in my journey that I went into a role and was just like, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to
That's
go.
Yep.
I'm trying to release. And it's not that I submitted him. It's not that I won the role. But it was different. And I
Letting
actually,
go expectations, maybe?
Yeah, you broke a
a
pattern,
little-
basically.
well, the expectations, but the negative as well.
Yeah.
Not just like, okay, I'm letting go of the expectation that I'm going to get this sweep that I've been working on. But letting go of like, well, Mo's just going to wrist lock me from an omoplata again. Right? Or Dan's just going to pass my guard and put me in a north-south choke. Right? So taking away that expectation as well. Just go, maybe I'll hit something.
Right.
Maybe I'll go for this. And and out of nowhere, you have actually a little bit of success with that thing that you're trying.
Yeah, you got a better position than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, or you did get a sweep. Or you did get a submission on whoever their Mo or,
Right.
I'm sure you are someone's Mo. Or I am someone's, like, that upper belt that they look at, or Dan or whatever, that, like, I never get Bill. But when they roll with me, they think that they're done already.
Right.
But then sometimes it's like if you can cut that out and be like, I'm just going to go.
And I think Pedro Sauer talked about that. Have you seen him talking about that? He goes, this is a person with 2 arms and 2 legs. They're a skeleton, and you can apply leverage to them. Even if they do it better than you, just go into it without, like you said, that psych out type of thing. It's hard to do, man.
Yeah.
Especially like with your professor or someone like that. It's almost like you're fighting your dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's not only is he a lot better and more experienced, but there's also that thing, too.
I feel like Andrew's impossible. It's like,
I know.
I try to pass his guard, and it never happens. He tries to pass, or he
Well,
does pass my
I try to
constantly.
stop him from. That's my thing. If I can just hold, I'm like, oh wow, maybe that was a little longer than last time. I don't know.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it's just pulling the trigger on things that you normally don't do,
Yeah.
and then sometimes it's gonna make things worse. But I think it's better for you to do that.
And developing the toughness, like she's saying,
Right.
is going to be through trying to cut loose of those expectations.
Man, so much of this art is mental, man. So much of it
Really
is.
is.
I mean, it's so crazy.
And then just diving in and making yourself uncomfortable, knowing that, like, you know that person's a difficult role.
Yep.
Or a high pace, especially.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to, more than like, they submit me all the time, or so, like, this is a high pace person. They don't stop moving, Brian. Dan.
Yep.
I'm going to do it. And then over time that develops.
Yep.
That toughness, and almost a confidence comes.
Yeah, I think exactly, but it's hard to do.
I know. I have these. I don't know what it is. I just think I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know. But I like literally have confidence where I'm like I feel kind of like a BA. Complete lack of confidence. Seconds apart. Minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, phew, I am all over the place.
Right.
It is wild. Like all the like kind of stuff I'm talking about, I'm battling with. I'll also have times where I'm like, heck yeah. Especially when it comes to the fight or flight thing, where a tough roll starts and like it's like aggressive and like I'm channeling it or something like that.
Right.
And that dog can come out.
Yeah.
But it's like I see red, bro. You don't want to see it when I see red.
I had someone say that not
we-
too long ago.
We had a dude at Olivia's work say that. Hopefully, he probably doesn't remember if he's listening. But he said there's no reason to really train any martial art because like he gets pretty pissed off, and when he does, it's like you can't really stop him from doing anything.
Usually those people
This dude was 135 pounds.
Oh yeah.
And his dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
He hasn't touched a cat in 14 years. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
know what we're talking about here?
I know what you mean.
I even asked him, I was like, what about a professional fighter? I literally brought up like pro MMA people, female and male. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't see how they could hold me down.
That's a lack of experience in getting dominated by someone.
Right.
That's the biggest, all of a sudden, I mean, you had a guy come in, God, it's a couple years ago, this big jack guy, just kind of shorter guy. Didn't he like have a bet with you or something?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden he was like, oh no.
Oh, he cardio tapped in the
Well, that's my point. And then all of a sudden they get a taste of reality. I mean, there's so many people who have an over-exaggerated.
Yeah, because he couldn't, that was the other thing. He actually, the first quote-unquote cardio tap was during grip-breaking drills.
Yeah.
And he couldn't break I was definitely holding on tighter than a normal partner would. But he couldn't break my grip.
Yeah.
And then he got tired, like once I would loosen up.
That's just someone that hasn't really experienced reality before.
Right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, all the stuff we're talking about is, within this community is relative to this community. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because if you take the general public, there's so many people that haven't been through true physical adversity.
Yeah.
The physical and mental aspects of it. And I think that's why it's so valuable. And I think we're going to constantly struggle with this kind of stuff, which is good. I think we need to.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
So, but anyway, we probably beat that one down.
You got anything, Liv? Any questions? I think we're good.
Yeah, we'll probably
Short
cut this one short today.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit some of the stuff, I'm sure.
Because we can't be late for training tonight.
Yeah,
anyway.
we are running. We're brimming a little bit. grapplingwithpodcast@gmail.com. Social media, Grappling with Podcast.
And we'll be doing, we'll see how much we want to get back on the science horse. We'll talk about that and see what we want to do. I have plenty of things we could do dietarily and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Send in questions or some topics you want to hear.
Yeah.
Because that's the best when someone suggests, hey, I really want to hear this, because other people probably do too.
Yeah, or if you know us in person, just come up and tell me what your question is.
Yep.
And I'll write it down like an adult would. Okay.
All right.
Blow us up, Tom.